You, the people of Iraq, are not our enemy. We do not seek your destruction.
Our foreign policy must have an ethical dimension and must support the demands of other peoples for the democratic rights on which we insist for ourselves.
Our quarrel is not with the Iraqi people. It never has been.
What the crime the Iraqi children were done to receive this punishment? What a crime.
On August the 2nd, 1990, after a dispute over shared oil fields, Iraq invaded Kuwait. 4 days later, the United Nations Security Council imposed economic sanctions, the most comprehensive in modern history. Almost everything was denied the people of Iraq, including, for the first 8 months, food and medicine. Today, 10 years later, sanctions are still in place, and the United Nations reports widespread chronic malnutrition and death among young children, an unprecedented human rights disaster. What happens when modern civilized life is taken away? Imagine all the things we take for granted are suddenly not available or severely limited. Clean water, fresh food, soap, paper, pencils, books, light bulbs, life-saving drugs. Telephone calls to the outside world are extremely difficult. Computers no longer work. When you fall ill, you must sell your furniture to buy medicine. When you have a tooth out, there's no anesthetic. No country will trade with yours, and your money is almost worthless. Soon your children become beggars. It's as if the world has condemned your whole society to a slow death, and all because of a dispute between governments over which you have no control. That's what has happened here in Iraq, where almost 10 years of extraordinary isolation, imposed by the UN and enforced by America and Britain, have killed more people than the 2 atomic bombs dropped on Japan, including 500,000 young children. These are the children the West has forgotten. 10 years ago, Iraq was a developed country whose oil had brought great wealth, but also a dependency on imported food and other essentials. Today, the death rate of children under 5 is over 4,000 every month. That's 4,000 more than would have died before sanctions. This is a typical hospital ward, which sanctions have denied basic equipment and the kind of life-saving drugs available in any British hospital.
Ali Rafa Aswadi, 9 years old, present to us with a progressive pallor and
he has
leukemia. Now we just start treatment. Some of the drugs is not available, not all the drugs is available. We give a blood transfusion. I tell you before, there is no blood bags enough.
Do you get these drugs some of the time?
Some of the time for 2-3 weeks and then stop. No drugs.
So you can't continue a course of the
You
drug?
couldn't continue a course of treatment. There's interrupted treatment, and sometimes there is no treatment at all. Case of neuroblastoma.
And that's a very unusual tumor.
This is, before, we don't see this before. Now, in these years, we see many cases of neuroblastoma.
You've never seen
No.
this?
No, no. Before, there is only one cases per 2 years, every 2 years.
Dr. Ali, what will happen to this child?
This is abdominal mass. Operation was done to him, but the tumor not received treatment. The tumor recurs again. So there is relapse. There's recurrence of a tumor, and now we start some of the drugs. Not all the drugs is available.
So his future is uncertain.
Bad, because there is renal shutdown. He developed renal failure.
The problem with treating cancer is that you've got to give the drugs at the right time and the right sequence, usually over a period of about 6 months, monthly visits, maybe 2 weekly visits. Now, with cancer, you only get one bite at the cherry. In other words, if you give them the right sequence at the right time, you have a high chance of curing a range of tumors, including those in children. If you do it wrongly, give them at the wrong time, so even though you have all the drugs, but they come at different intervals, as is happening in Iraq, you don't get nearly such a high success rate. So an 80% cure rate is translated into a 30% cure rate, same drugs given in the wrong sequence.
Also neuroblastoma.
This is this unusual malignancy on the nervous system,
Yes.
which you've only seen now.
Yes, we see many cases now.
Many cases
Many
now.
cases now. Before we see only 1 case or 2 cases every 2-3 years. Now we see many cases. 11 years old. This. Also look.
She's malnourished.
Malnourished. We start treatment today with available drugs, and some of the drugs is missed. I tell you, VM26 is not available.
Are there many children who never come to hospital?
Many children, because a very poor family, and we couldn't get this paying for treat the children. Yes, Kadam Saleh, 5.5 years old. This is case of Hodgkin's.
Yeah.
This is also newly diagnosed. Some of the drugs is not available.
So a child normally with Hodgkin's disease can expect to live?
Live and about improve it 95%.
95%?
95% cure. But if the drug is not available, maybe lead to the other complication. Case malnourished with leukemia, newly diagnosed leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Also, you see very poor family. We start treatment by medication, available medication, and some of the drugs is missing for treatment. Thiaguani is not available. You look, most of the children is malnourished.
And this child is how old?
2 years old.
2. We've just been around this ward. All these children have a very, very uncertain future. How do you feel about that as a doctor?
I am very sad, because all of the children look like our daughter or my son. And when you see my son in front of me dying, what happened to you?
This is the Security Council, center of power at the United Nations in New York. In 1996, the Council allowed Iraq to sell some of its oil reserves in order to buy food and other basic needs. This is known as oil for food. All the money from the sale of Iraq's oil is controlled by the Security Council, which the United States dominates, and with Britain takes a hard line on Iraq. Everything that goes to Iraq must be approved by a special sanctions committee run by the Council. This committee has consistently blocked the restoration of basic services in Iraq: power, light, and clean running water. For the children of Iraq, oil means food. Although the Iraqis have been told they can repair their damaged oil industry, contracts for vital equipment have been blocked or delayed in New York. Currently, more than $1.5 billion worth of desperately needed shipments are on hold, including food, life-saving medical equipment, such as equipment to diagnose and treat cancer, and X-ray machines, heart and lung machines, firefighting equipment, agricultural equipment, and toilet soap. The stated aim of the sanctions is to eradicate Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. Just before last Christmas, the Department of Trade and Industry in London blocked a shipment of vaccines intended to protect Iraqi children against yellow fever and diphtheria. The vaccines, said the minister, are capable of being used in weapons of mass destruction. This is Dennis Halliday, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, the man in charge of the humanitarian operation in Iraq. In 1998, he resigned, accusing the West of destroying a whole society. We took him on his first trip back. In the cancer clinic of this hospital in Baghdad, he had a remarkable reunion with a young girl whose life he helped to save.
John, this is Safa Majid and her father, who is Majid Ali. Safa I met 2 years ago in this hospital when she was in very poor condition of leukemia. And one cannot deal with thousands, but one can deal with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 children. And I was able, with the help of the World Health Organization, to bring in drugs, although be it illegally, from overseas. Enough for 2 years of treatment for this little girl. And today she looks wonderful, beautiful, and she has only now treatment once every month. So I think she's almost cured of leukemia.
She is one of 4, wasn't she?
One of 4.
Tell me about the others.
Well, within the first 5 weeks of meeting these 4 children, 2 died simply for lack of medications, or it was too late, in fact, to save their lives. And there were 2 little girls, including Safa, who have survived.
Why did they die?
They died because they had sophisticated problems, which the medications were not available.
And when you set out to help these children, you were the United Nations representative here.
That's right.
And to do it, what you're saying is you had to act illegally.
I had to breach my own economic sanctions, so to speak, established by the Security Council, as we know, led by Washington and by London. I think in this hospital we've seen today evidence of the killing that is now the responsibility of the Security Council member states, particularly, I think, Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. They should be here with us. They should see the impact of what their decisions and their sustaining of economic sanctions means. The very provisions of the Charter and the Declaration of Human Rights have been set aside. And we are waging a warfare through the United Nations on the children and people of Iraq with incredible results that you do not expect to see in a war under the Geneva Conventions. We're targeting civilians, worse, we're targeting children like Safa, who of course were not born when Iraq went into Kuwait. I mean, what is this about? It's a monstrous situation for the United Nations, for the Western world, for all of us who are part of some democratic system, who are in fact responsible for the policies of our governments and the implementation of economic sanctions on Iraq.
When the U.S. Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, was asked on American television if she thought the death of more than 500,000 children was a price worth paying, she replied, "We think the price is worth it."
We don't accept the 500,000 figure. So if you say that Secretary Albright said, oh, 500,000 was a price worth paying, we don't accept that.
It's the World Health Organization.
I understand,
yeah.
That's their figure, and it's derived by a methodology that we don't accept. We do accept the idea that in choosing and making policy, one has to choose usually between 2 bad choices, not between a good choice and a bad choice. And unfortunately, the effect of sanctions has been more than we would have hoped. What we've tried to do is to limit that effect, as I indicated, through the Oil for Food and other programs to try to provide food and medicine for the people of Iraq. And so, yes, when Secretary Albright was talking about the hard choice, she was acknowledging the hard choice between the effect of sanctions and the idea of letting Saddam Hussein run rampant, but she wasn't accepting the 500,000 figure.
How many children do you think have died?
We don't have a figure. It's not something that one can easily make, and we think some of the people who put these figures out inevitably have to use some dubious methodology.
While Western politicians quibble about methodology, the latest United Nations study says that the death rate of children has doubled under sanctions. That's 500,000 dead in 8 years.
Hassan Rashid, 18 months old, this before disease, this after the disease, a case of neuroblastoma in 1993. The child died also because there's no drugs at all. Ali Assad. This is also a case of Hodgkin disease in 1998. He finished treatment. Some of the drugs brings by the family, and he is cured now.
So if you are rich, it's likely you live, and if you are poor,
yes, die. If the drugs is not available in hospitals and the family is very poor, the child he will die sooner or later. I thought that.
How do you cope with this work?
Very hardly.
I asked that because I saw you in the corridor there. You'd broken into tears.
Yes. Everything is devastating to us. It's frustrating me because I faced many problems and I couldn't do anything. And what happened in the future? All these children is generation of the future. We lost the generation. I want to tell you some things. What the crime the Iraqi children were done to receive this punishment?
What crime?
What a crime.